grave whisper.
I wasn't supposed to stop in Briar Hollow. That's the truth I cling to, even now. If I had followed the GPS instead of my instincts, if I hadn't trusted that cracked two-lane road cutting through the Appalachian foothills, I would have driven straight past it. But the road dipped, twisted, and narrowed until the trees leaned in so close they blocked the sky. Then the signal died, and the town appeared. A wooden sign stood crooked at the roadside, its paint peeled down to bare grain. Welcome to Briar Hollow, population 317. Something about the number bothered me. It felt too specific, like it had been updated recently. I slowed the car. The air changed the moment I crossed the town line. Thicker, heavier, like breathing through damp cloth. The trees gave way to old houses with sagging porches and windows darkened by age or intent. No movement. No sound, not even wind. It was nearly dusk. I told myself I'd stop only long enough to ask for directions. The main street was barely a street at all, just a stretched-out scar of cracked asphalt. A diner sat at the center of town, its neon sign flickering even though it was still light out. Mary's Place. One letter buzzed louder than the others, like an insect trapped in glass. I parked. The bell above the diner door rang when I stepped inside, sharp and loud enough to make me flinch. The place smelled like burnt coffee and something coppery beneath it, old but not rotten. Every head turned toward me. There were maybe a dozen people inside, men, women, a few children. All of them stared, not with curiosity, not hostility either. It was something worse, recognition. A woman behind the counter smiled. Her teeth were too even, too white. "You must be tired," she said. Her voice landed heavy in my ears. Yeah, I replied. "Just passing through. Lost signal." She nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something she already knew. "You always do." That sentence didn't make sense. I laughed it off, ordered coffee I didn't want, and sat by the window. My hands shook when I wrapped them around the mug. The coffee was lukewarm, like it had been poured long before I arrived. That's when I noticed the photographs. They lined the walls, hundreds of them. Old black and white prints, color Polaroids, phone pictures printed on cheap paper. All of them showed people standing in front of the Briar Hollow sign, smiling. Every single face wore the same expression, relief mixed with something else, something final. Then I saw a photo that made my stomach drop. It was me, same jacket, same scar on my chin, same car parked behind me. The photo looked old, faded at the edges. I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly against the floor. No one reacted. They just kept watching me with those calm, knowing eyes. The woman leaned closer over the counter. "We put your picture up early this time," she said softly. It helps the town remember." "Remember what?" I asked. Her smile widened. "Your name." The lights flickered, and outside, the road I'd driven in on was gone, replaced by dense forest, stretching in every direction like it had always been there. That was the moment I understood something terrible. Briar Hollow didn't trap people. It recognized them, and somehow it had known me long before I arrived.
I didn't run. That's the part that still haunts me. Every instinct screamed that I should bolt for the door, shove past whoever tried to stop me, and drive until the engine died. But my legs felt heavy, like they were already learning the weight of the place. Briar Hollow had a way of convincing your body before your mind caught up. I asked to see the photo again. The woman, Mary, I assumed, lifted it off the wall and slid it across the counter. Up close, it was worse. The date scrawled on the back was smudged but readable. October 12, 1998. I was 12 years old in 1998. I had never been to this town. I told her that. Mary tilted her head. "Not all visits leave footprints," she said. "Some just leave echoes." I tried to ask what that meant, but a man at the corner booth spoke first. "You'll want a room," he said casually, stirring sugar into his coffee. "Night comes fast here." I checked my phone. Still no signal. The time read 6:41 p.m. When I glanced up at the clock behind the counter, it read 8:03 p.m. Mary followed my gaze and smiled. Time stretches when you're remembered. That's when the fear finally settled in my chest, slow and suffocating. They gave me directions to the only motel in town, not an offer, an expectation. When I stepped outside, the light had already drained from the sky. No twilight, no warning, just darkness falling like a curtain. The motel sat at the edge of town, its sign buzzing weakly, Hollow Rest. The parking lot was empty except for my car, and tire tracks that didn't belong to me. Dozens of them, all leading in, none leading out. The room smelled like dust and pine cleaner. Clean, but untouched. The bedspread was tucked tight, corners sharp. On the nightstand sat a small leather notebook. I didn't want to open it. I did anyway. Inside were names, dates, notes written in different handwriting styles, different inks. Some entries were neat and hopeful. Others were frantic, slashed across the page like the writer had been shaking. Every entry ended the same way. The town knows me now. Near the back of the book, I found a blank page. Except my name was already written at the top. I dropped the notebook like it burned. There was a knock at the door. 3 slow taps. I didn't answer. The handle turned anyway. A boy stood in the doorway, maybe 10 years old, barefoot, dirt under his nails. His eyes were far too old for his face. "You shouldn't lock the door," he said. "It thinks you're hiding." "What thinks?" I asked. "The town." He stepped inside without waiting. I noticed then that his shadow didn't match his movements. It lagged behind, stretching toward the hallway like it wanted to leave without him. "People who stay long enough," the boy continued, "start hearing it whisper. At first it just says your name, Later, it starts correcting you. Correcting what? Your memories, he said simply. Where you're from, who you miss, who you were before. I felt cold. What happens if you leave? The boy smiled, and for the first time he looked like a child afraid of the dark. No one leaves, he said. Some just stop being people. Before I could ask more, the lights flickered. When they steadied, the boy was gone. The door stood open. Outside, the forest had crept closer. Trees pressed against the motel fence like spectators. I sat on the bed and realized something else, something small but devastating. I couldn't remember the last town I'd passed through. Its name had slipped away, clean and quiet, like Briar Hollow had erased it to make room for itself. And somewhere beyond the trees, I could swear I heard the town breathing.
I didn't sleep. I lay on that stiff motel bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it clicked in uneven rhythm, counting the seconds between each sound. Outside, the forest whispered, not in wind, but in murmurs, low, layered, almost conversational. Every so often I caught my name drifting through it, stretched thin like it was being tested on unfamiliar tongues. Sometime after what my phone claimed was midnight, the notebook slid off the nightstand by itself. No wind, no vibration, it just tipped over and fell open. New writing crawled across the blank page where my name waited. The ink appeared slowly, like it was seeping up from beneath the paper. Arrival confirmed. Duration pending. I slammed the book shut and shoved it into the drawer. The whispers outside grew louder, annoyed. At dawn, if you could call that gray, sickly light dawn, I left the motel. I needed answers, or proof I was still sane. The town was awake. People moved through the streets now, opening shops that hadn't existed the night before. A hardware store, a barber, a school bus idling at the corner, empty but humming, its door opening and closing like it was breathing. Everyone I passed greeted me by name. "Morning," they said. "Good to see you again. You look better this time." This time. I stopped an elderly man sweeping his porch. "How long have I been here?" I asked. He frowned, confused by the question. "You came back 3 days ago," he said, "same as always." My chest tightened. "I arrived last night." The man shook his head gently, like I was a child arguing over a dream. "No, you arrived on Monday. You always do." I checked my phone again. The calendar now read Thursday. Panic crept in sideways. I hurried toward the diner, hoping Mary would explain, hoping she wouldn't. But when I pushed open the door, the bell didn't ring. The diner was different, brighter, cleaner, lived in. The walls still held photographs, but new ones had been added, more recent, higher resolution. I saw myself in at least 5 of them. Different clothes, different hair lengths. One showed me standing beside people I didn't recognize, my arm around them like family. Mary poured coffee without asking. "You're adjusting faster," she said. "That's good." "I want to leave," I said. She paused, then corrected herself mid-motion. Her hand jerked slightly, like a puppet string pulled tight. "You don't want to leave," she said again, smoother this time. "No, I do." Her smile faded, not into anger, but disappointment.
The town doesn't like contradictions. They make it revise. What does that mean? She leaned closer. I smelled pine and old paper. It means if you remember something wrong for too long, Briar Hollow fixes it. A scream echoed outside. Everyone in the diner froze, except Mary. Through the window, I saw a woman kneeling in the street, clutching her head. The shadows around her twisted upward, peeling off the pavement like smoke. Her mouth moved, begging, but no sound came out anymore. The shadows folded in on her. When they pulled back, she was smiling and standing, waving at someone across the street. Her eyes were empty, clean, corrected. No one spoke. Mary wiped the counter. She kept saying she was from Ohio, she explained calmly, but she wasn't anymore. I stumbled back, knocking over my chair. "That's not possible," I said. Mary tilted her head. "Neither is remembering Briar Hollow before it remembers you." As I fled the diner, something hit me harder than fear. I was struggling to remember my own hometown. The name felt slippery, like trying to hold smoke. I knew there were people there, faces, voices, but they were blurring, edges smudged, as if the town were erasing them to make space. A sudden pressure built behind my eyes, and for just a moment, just one terrifying second, I couldn't remember why that frightened me.
I tried to leave that afternoon. I packed my bag, got into my car, and turned the key. The engine started without protest, which felt wrong in itself, like Briar Hollow wanted me to believe escape was possible. I followed the road out of town, the same cracked asphalt I'd driven in on. After 10 minutes, the trees thinned. After 20, I saw a familiar bend in the road. After 30, I passed the Welcome to Briar Hollow sign again, this time facing the opposite direction. My fuel gauge hadn't moved. The odometer read the same number it had when I left. The town hadn't blocked the road, it had folded it. I screamed then, not in fear, anger. I slammed the steering wheel until my hands ached. When I looked up, someone was standing in the middle of the street. The boy from the motel. He wasn't barefoot anymore. He wore sneakers, clean, new. "You're doing it wrong," he said through the open window. "You can't leave while you still belong somewhere else." "What does that even mean?" I demanded. He pointed past me, toward the center of town. "You haven't gone home yet." I laughed, sharp and broken. "I don't have a home here." The boy's eyes softened. "You will." Before I could argue, he stepped back and the world blinked. I was standing on a porch, not the motel's. A house sat before me, 2 stories tall, white paint peeling in long strips. Wind chimes hung from the eaves, clinking softly even though the air was still. The place radiated familiarity, the way a childhood memory does, uncertain but heavy. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house smelled like dust and lemon oil. Framed photos lined the walls. I walked past them slowly, heart pounding. They weren't my memories. They were almost my memories. A younger version of me at a dinner table, laughing beside people whose faces blurred when I tried to focus. A birthday cake with candles shaped like numbers I couldn't quite read. A Christmas morning scene where I recognized the feeling, but not the faces. The town hadn't copied my past, it had rewritten it. Upstairs, I found a bedroom, my bedroom. My name was carved under the underside of the desk in childish handwriting. The bed was unmade,
sheets warm like someone had just stood up. On the nightstand sat a stack of letters addressed to me, all from different years, all with the same return address, Briar Hollow. My hands shook as I opened the most recent one. "We were worried when you left again. You always forget how much you mean to us. The town misses you when you're gone." I backed away, nausea rising. "This isn't real," I whispered. The house disagreed. The walls creaked, the lights dimmed. From somewhere deep inside the structure, I heard breathing, slow, patient. I felt it then, a pull, a gravitational tug in my chest, like the house was trying to settle me into place, to assign me a role I'd abandoned. The notebook appeared on the desk behind me. I hadn't brought it. It was open to a new page. Residence confirmed. Integration in progress. I slammed the book shut and ran. The front door wouldn't open. I pounded on it until my palms burned. The windows darkened, reflections stretching wrong, showing versions of me standing behind me, older, calmer, smiling like they belonged. The boy's voice echoed through the house. "Every time you come back, you stay a little longer." I screamed his name, though I didn't know how I knew it. The door finally swung open, throwing me forward onto the porch. The house was gone. In its place stood an empty lot, overgrown with weeds. No foundation, no debris, only a mailbox. Inside was a single envelope. The date stamped on it was tomorrow, and it was already addressed to me.
I didn't open the envelope right away. I carried it with me like a live wire, afraid that the moment I broke the seal, whatever was inside would make something final. Instead, I walked through streets that now felt narrower, closer. Houses leaned inward, their porches sagging like shoulders tired of holding secrets. The people watched me pass, not openly, not anymore. They pretended to mind their business, but I felt their attention sliding after me, counting my steps, measuring how well I was fitting. I ducked into the church at the edge of town, the one building I hadn't entered yet. Its doors were heavy, carved with symbols I didn't recognize, but somehow understood. Names, dates, cycles. Inside, the air was cold and dry. Wooden pews lined the aisle, polished smooth by use. On the far wall hung a mural, not of saints or angels, but of the town itself. Briar Hollow painted again and again, layered over centuries. Same streets, same buildings, different people, always smiling, always familiar. I moved closer and realized the figures weren't generic. Each face had detail, freckles, scars, crooked teeth, individuality preserved like a trophy. Near the bottom corner, partially painted over, I saw myself, not as I am now, older, calm, finished. The envelope in my hand twitched. I opened it. Inside was a single page written in careful ink. You always ask the same question, so here is the same answer. Briar Hollow is not a place. It is a memory that refuses to be forgotten. The words swam as my pulse pounded. When towns die, they usually vanish. We learned how to stay.
A sound rose behind me, soft at first, murmuring. The pews were filling, one by one, though I hadn't heard the doors open. Men, women, children, all the faces from the photos, all the versions of them, and among them, versions of me, some young, some old, some tired beyond measure. I staggered back. "What do you want from me?" A voice answered from everywhere at once. "You remember us." The mural shifted, paint rippled like wet skin. Most pass through, they forget, but you never did. Even when you left, part of you stayed. I remembered then. A childhood road trip, a wrong turn, a night spent in a town my parents never spoke of again. How I dreamed of it for years after. Faces I couldn't place, streets I couldn't name. Briar Hollow hadn't hunted me. It had waited. "You help us stay real," the voice said. "Every time you return, you strengthen the memory. You anchor us." My legs gave out. I collapsed into a pew. "And if I don't?" I asked. The crowd smiled in unison. "Then we take what you use to leave." A sharp pain tore through my head. Images flared. My mother's face, my father's voice, the sound of my childhood home at night. They peeled away, one by one, sucked backward like smoke into a vacuum. I screamed. When it stopped, I was alone in the church. No mural, no people, just bare walls and empty pews. I tried to think of my parents' names. Nothing came. I stumbled outside, gasping, clutching my skull. The town looked brighter somehow, clearer, as if it had sharpened itself with what it took from me. Mary stood across the street, watching. "They always start with family," she said gently. "Those are easiest to remove." "Why me?" I whispered. She stepped closer. "Because you still remember enough to matter." I realized then what Briar Hollow took first. Not bodies, not time, belonging. And once that was gone, leaving became unnecessary.
After the church, the town stopped pretending. People spoke to me openly now about things they'd avoided before, about cycles, about balance, about how Briar Hollow needed roles filled the way a body needs organs. Some people cooked, some watched the roads, some corrected newcomers when they remembered too much, and some remembered for the town. That was the job waiting for me. It started small, subtle. I'd pass someone on the street and suddenly know their name, even though we'd never spoken. I'd remember where they'd come from, the color of the car they'd arrived in, the lie they'd told themselves about why they stopped. The knowledge slid into my head cleanly, without effort, like recalling something I'd always known. Mary noticed first. "You're settling," she said, handing me coffee I hadn't ordered. "The town appreciates that." "I'm not helping it," I snapped. She didn't argue. She just nodded, the way you do when a child insists they aren't tired while rubbing their eyes. That afternoon, the boy found me again. He sat beside me on the courthouse steps, swinging his legs. He looked older now, 12, maybe 13. "It changes us," he said. "Every time someone accepts a job, the town lets them grow a little." "You're trapped here," I said. He smiled sadly. "No, I'm useful." A car rolled into town as he spoke, dusty, out-of-state plates. A couple inside, arguing, lost. I felt it immediately, a tug behind my eyes. Their names surfaced, their fears, the exact moment they'd decide not to leave. I stood without thinking. "Don't," the boy warned gently. "Once you do it on purpose, it sticks." I ignored him. I approached the car before they could reach the diner, knocked on the window. The man rolled it down, irritation already on his face. "Road's out," I said, calmly. "Motels cheap, diners warm." The words felt rehearsed, perfect. Relief washed over them. They thanked me, drove deeper into town. Something clicked into place inside my chest. The town exhaled. That night, the notebook returned. This time, it didn't scare me. A new page waited, blank except for a heading, Caretaker, Active. I flipped back through earlier pages and understood at last. The frantic handwriting, the fear, the gradual calm. Everyone who'd tried to fight it, everyone who'd eventually helped. It wasn't punishment, it was continuity. The boy appeared in the mirror as I washed my face. "You lasted longer than most," he said. "That's why you matter." "What happens if I stop?" I asked. He met my gaze. "Then the town forgets you." The idea terrified me more than staying. Outside, the forest whispered again, but softer now, familiar, almost grateful. I sat on the motel bed and realized I couldn't remember what I'd planned to do with my life before Briar Hollow. The future beyond the town felt abstract, unnecessary. There was work here, purpose, and for the first time since I arrived, I slept deeply, without dreams. I don't know how much time passed after I became useful. Days didn't matter anymore. The town stopped measuring them the way the rest of the world did. Morning came when Briar Hollow needed light. Night fell when it wanted privacy. I moved with that rhythm, and for a while it felt easier. Too easy. That was how I knew something was wrong. It started with dreams, not memories. Those were mostly gone now, filed away or stripped down to impressions. These were new. I dreamed of roads that didn't fold back on themselves, of towns with names that stayed put when you spoke them, of a woman's voice I almost recognized, saying my name like it belonged to me, not the town. I woke with my heart racing and the taste of iron in my mouth. The notebook didn't like that. Its pages began changing when I wasn't looking. Names smudged out, dates rewritten, notes that once ended with calm acceptance now finished mid-sentence, ink trailing off as if the writer had been interrupted. Mary noticed me watching the walls again. "That's not part of your job," she said gently. "I want to see the old ones," I replied, "the ones before me." Her jaw tightened just a fraction. "They're resting. I want to meet them." She sighed, long and tired. "Caretakers aren't supposed to need closure." That night, the boy led me beyond the edge of town, past the motel, past the folded road, into the forest where the trees stood too close together. The air there was colder, heavier, like the town's lungs. "There," he said, pointing. I hadn't seen the building before, but I understood it immediately. A schoolhouse, old, collapsed in places, ivy choking its walls. Inside, rows of desks sat crooked and dust-covered.
Names were carved on every surface, hundreds of them, thousands, caretakers. At the front of the room stood figures, not ghosts, not quite people either. They were preserved, held in the shape they'd last believed themselves to be. Some stared at the chalkboard, some clutched notebooks. One sat with his head in his hands, mouth frozen open in a scream that would never finish. They remembered too much, the boy said softly. They tried to leave while still carrying the town inside them. I recognized one face, older than me, same scar on the chin, a version that almost made it out. What happens to them? I asked. They hold the overflow, the boy replied. The memories Briar Hollow can't afford to lose. The building creaked. The figures twitched, just slightly, like they sensed me noticing them. "Why show me this?" I whispered. The boy didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice sounded older than ever. "Because you're starting to remember against the town," he said, "and if you keep doing that, you'll need to know where you'll end up." On the way back, I realized something horrifying. The town was quieter, fewer cars, fewer newcomers. "You've been slowing down," the boy said, reading my thoughts. "You're hesitating." "I don't bring them all in," I admitted. "Some still turn around." The forest whispered sharply then, angry, correcting. "That's dangerous," he warned. "If Briar Hollow weakens, it doesn't disappear." "What happens?" I asked. The boy stopped walking and looked at me with real fear. "It spreads," he said, looking for someone else who remembers. That night, the notebook opened by itself again. A new heading waited for me. Successor, under consideration. Below it, a name had been written. Not mine, someone new. And for the first time since arriving, I felt something stronger than fear. Jealousy.
The next morning, I woke to a silence I hadn't known since my arrival. Even the usual murmuring of the forest outside seemed muted, as if Briar Hollow itself were holding its breath. That feeling, the tight pressure in my chest, was back. Only this time, it wasn't just fear, it was warning. The diner was still, empty except for Mary behind the counter. She looked different somehow, older, more worn. Her eyes met mine, and I realized she'd been expecting someone or something. "They're here," she said quietly. I didn't understand. "Successors," she explained, her hands trembling slightly as she polished a coffee mug. "They always come quietly. You won't see them arrive, but you'll know when one is here. You can feel the space they take." I froze. A couple walked through the diner doors, young, pale, nervous. They carried backpacks, maps, the kind of nervous energy you carry when you're truly lost. They didn't know the road folded. They didn't know the town remembered. They didn't even know their names were already listed in the notebook I'd left open on a booth. I stood. The boy was there again, silent at my side. "Watch," he whispered. I did. The couple sat down, and as soon as they did, their eyes glazed slightly. Their movements slowed. Their smiles forced themselves in at odd moments. The air around them thickened, settling them into the rhythm of the town. They were softening, becoming pliable, becoming correctable. It hit me then like a physical blow. These weren't just replacements, they were practice runs. Every new arrival reinforced the rules, taught them how to behave, showed them how to belong. And if I failed, I would be next. Mary approached the table. Her voice was gentle, but there was steel beneath it. "You understand now, don't you? Briar Hollow doesn't just anchor memories, it anchors people, and when someone like you hesitates..." The boy tugged at my sleeve. I looked down. He was older again, though still uncanny. His face mirrored the seriousness of someone who carried far too much for his age. "They wait for the weak. They'll take you quietly. You won't even know it happened until it's too late." I swallowed hard. I spent that night pacing the motel room, notebook in hand. I tried to remember the outside world, tried to hold on to the life I'd left behind, but every memory I called up slipped like sand. Faces blurred, streets shifted. Even my hometown, if it still existed, was becoming a phantom. The next day, the couple disappeared from the diner. I never saw them again. In their place, a new entry appeared in the notebook, neat and clean. Redacted, integrated. I stared at it. The word integrated felt like a verdict, a sentence, a promise. Mary appeared behind me. "Do you understand your role now?" she asked. "Yes," I said, but inside I felt a creeping dread. I wasn't just a caretaker, I was a gatekeeper. And every day that passed, the town whispered louder, reminding me that it had already decided how long I would stay. That night, I tried to leave again. The car wouldn't start. The roads were unfamiliar. The forest pressed closer. And then, through the windshield, I saw a figure walking down the road towards me, slow, purposeful, familiar. The boy, or was he a man now? His eyes met mine, and in them I saw the truth I hadn't wanted to face. Briar Hollow doesn't just remember you, it replaces you with someone else if you falter. And I had been faltering. I stopped trying to fight. By now, Briar Hollow had settled into me, the same way it had settled into the roads, the buildings, the walls of the diner. I knew the names of the newcomers before they spoke them. I could feel their fear, their relief, their small moments of hesitation, and I corrected them, gently, mechanically, like I had been trained to do so by the town itself. But the town wanted more than obedience. It wanted devotion. It wanted memory. And slowly it began to test me, probing for cracks. It started with small changes in the motel room. Drawers I had never opened were filled with old receipts, letters, photographs, all of me. Memories I couldn't place, places I couldn't recognize, notes in my handwriting detailing moments I hadn't lived, or had I? The lines between past and present blurred. Then came the house, the one that had appeared the first week I arrived, the false home that had been gone when I tried to leave. It appeared again that night, sitting solid and real as if it had never left. I approached cautiously. The door was ajar. Inside, every room was familiar. Every object was mine. Not exactly mine, twisted, perfected, rewritten. The walls remembered me before I could remember myself. The photographs stared back at me, smiling in ways that were almost human. The notebooks waited on tables, open to pages that predicted what I would write. I understood then. This house wasn't just a dwelling. It was me. All the memories the town had stripped, all the corrections, all the caretakers before me, they were stored here, layered, stacked, waiting. I tried to leave again. The forest beyond the property stretched endlessly, a wall of black trunks and whispering leaves. The road was gone. The sign welcoming newcomers was gone. Only the house remained. Inside, the boy was waiting, or maybe he had always been here. He looked older, taller, now almost a mirror of me. His eyes glinted with something I could not name: knowledge, patience, inevitability. "You can't leave," he said softly. "Not really. Not without becoming one of them." "I'm already one of them," I said. He shook his head. "Not yet. You still remember who you were outside. That's dangerous." And then it hit me. I understood the cycle. Every caretaker eventually tries to resist. Some refuse the new roles. Some fail to guide newcomers properly. Some remember too much of the world they came from. Those people are stored, preserved in the old schoolhouse. They become part of the town's memory. I had felt it already, the pull when I saw those figures, and now I realized if I failed, I would be next. I sank to the floor of the living room, clutching the notebooks to my chest. Every photograph of myself seemed to move just slightly when I looked away. The house exhaled, or maybe it was me. Mary appeared in the doorway, older now, exhausted, patient. "You know what you must do," she said. "Yes," I whispered. I rose. I walked through the house, checking every room, touching every item, memorizing everything the town wanted me to remember. I read each letter, each entry in the notebook, correcting, anchoring, recording. I guided newcomers who appeared at the doors, sometimes before they even realized they were lost. I became the town. And for a moment, in that quiet, suffocating house that remembered me first, I felt a strange satisfaction, purpose, belonging, control, until I looked in the mirror and realized the face staring back at me was not entirely mine. It was older, smoother, corrected, smiling. Briar Hollow had remembered me again, and I understood then, fully, finally, that I would never leave.
By now, I no longer thought of myself as a visitor. Briar Hollow had settled into me the way a river settles into its banks. Every memory, every step, every choice I had once made outside the town felt distant, like a dream I could almost touch but never quite recall. My past was folded neatly into the town's memory, stripped of clutter, corrected, sanitized. What remained of me existed solely to serve the town, to preserve its stories, its roads, its walls, and its people, real and imagined alike. The house that had first appeared, the house that had remembered me, was now permanent. Every object, every photograph, every book was a mirror of the town's mind. When I walked from room to room, I could feel the weight of centuries pressing down, each caretaker before me leaving a mark, a whisper, a warning. I was both observer and participant, both prisoner and warden. The boy, older, taller, almost indistinguishable from me, appeared at the doorway. "It's time," he said. "You've done enough. You've remembered enough. You know your place." I understood. The newcomers I had guided, the lives I had corrected, the memories I had stored, all of it had prepared me for this moment. I was no longer a man walking into Briar Hollow. I had become the town itself. I stepped outside into the streets. Everything was familiar. The diner, the motel, the church, the overgrown schoolhouse hidden in the forest. But now I saw the patterns, the repetitions. The newcomers would arrive again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. They would be lost, they would hesitate, they would listen, and I would guide them. Mary stood across the street, smiling as she always had. "You understand," she said simply. "Yes," I replied, but I knew it was more than understanding. I was stitched into the fabric of Briar Hollow. My name, my memories, my very sense of self existed only in relation to this town. To leave would be impossible. To resist would be folly. A new couple appeared at the edge of town, lost, tired, frightened. Their names were already written in the notebooks I carried, their lives awaiting correction. I guided them, gently, firmly, with the practiced calm of one who knows the rules of the world. The town exhaled, the trees leaned closer, shadows shifted in approval. And for the first time, I understood the final truth. Briar Hollow never forgets. It never truly loses anyone because it doesn't need to. It waits, remembers, corrects, and folds you into its memory. Some resist, some are stored, some accept, and every one of us, caretakers, successors, lost travelers, is a part of its consciousness now, indistinguishable from the streets, the walls, the whispers in the forest. I walked back to the house, to the rooms filled with photographs and notebooks, and placed my hand on the wall. I could feel the pulse of the town beneath the paint, beneath the wood, beneath the earth itself. It was alive. It was patient. It was eternal. The road into Briar Hollow no longer mattered. The road out never existed. I am the town now. I remember everyone who arrives. I correct everyone who falters. I anchor the memories. I guide the lost. And if anyone ever tries to leave, the town remembers them anyway. Because Briar Hollow never forgets. And neither will I.